Welcome back. Today we're making this adorable Frankenstein cake. It's made with delicious green velvet cake layers, so we're going to start by sifting together our dry ingredients, which include cake flour, cocoa, baking soda, and salt. We're then going to cream together 1 stick of butter or a half a cup. This is unsalted butter with our granulated sugar. We're going to mix this on a medium-high speed until everything is incorporated and the butter becomes a little bit fluffier. Then we're going to add in 2 large eggs and mix those in until everything is nice and incorporated. It should be pretty smooth in the end like this. And then it's time to start adding in our wet ingredients. We're going to add in some low-fat buttermilk, vegetable oil, or you could also use canola oil, some green gel food coloring. This is just Leaf Green by Chef Master, and then our vanilla extract, and our last ingredient, which is a little bit of white vinegar. And we're going to mix this on a medium-low speed until combined. As you guys probably know by now, I love using gel food coloring. It gives baked goods such a vibrant color without giving them a bitter taste, so if you have some, definitely use that instead of liquid food coloring. Next, we're incorporating our dry ingredients on a low speed here, and we're going to do that in 2 installments just until our batter comes together like this. Then it's time to fill our cake pans. I'm using 3 7-inch cake pans that I've lined with parchment rounds and greased with nonstick spray. But don't worry, if you don't have 7-inch cake pans, you can use 4 6-inch cake pans as well. We're going to bake these in a preheated 350-degree oven for 28 to 32 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out with a few moist crumbs. While our cake layers bake, I like to make my cream cheese buttercream frosting. I have a full video up on this, so if you have any questions, be sure to check out the video that is linked in the upper corner. We're adding some electric green food coloring into this. If you don't have this shade, you can also use a combination of just regular green gel food coloring and some yellow to give it a really bright, vibrant color just like this. As always, I like to stir my frosting by hand at the end with a rubber spatula just to get out any air bubbles that might be trapped and make it super smooth before adding it to our cake. And then the final step before we start assembling this cake is to level our cake layers. I highly recommend doing this just using a serrated knife and kind of working your way around the cake layer slowly. It makes your cake layers so much easier to stack and frost, and I actually do end up leaving one of my cake layers domed to go on top of the cake, but in general, leveling your cake layers makes the process so much easier. I'm placing this in the center of my cake board with a dab of frosting underneath just to help it stay in place, and then I'm going to spread a nice even layer of buttercream on top of that. I'm going to repeat this process with our next cake layer, and I always like to add a decent amount of frosting because I love eating frosting, but if you don't love frosting quite as much as me, you can always add less between the layers. So once I've smoothed that out with my large offset spatula, I'm going to place my last cake layer on top with the dome up because it's going to kind of help us create Frankenstein's hair and make his head look just super cute. Then it's time for our crumb coat, which is just a thin layer of frosting we're going to spread all over the cake to help trap in any of those dark green crumbs. So when we add on our second layer of frosting, it's beautiful and silky smooth. I smoothed this out with a bench scraper, then popped it into the freezer for about 10 minutes just to allow the crumb coat to chill, and once it was firm to the touch, I added on my second thicker layer of frosting here. So it's pretty much the same process, but it's using a little bit more frosting. I then colored some of my remaining buttercream black to make Frankenstein's hair and help create his facial features. To make his eyes, I'm using a circle cutter like this just to act as kind of a guide for when I'm piping them out. And then I'm using some white buttercream to pipe out each of his little eyeballs. I smoothed them out using a piece of acetate sheet. You could also use a small offset spatula, and then I piped some black buttercream on top of them. I was kind of going for like a cartoon-esque look, which is a little bit harder to do with buttercream than with fondant, so if you're not super comfortable piping, you can always use fondant to make the eyes and facial features. Then I added on his mouth, his scar, and his ears, and I went to town on his hair. So I'm just using a small round piping tip here. This is a Wilton 10, but any round piping tip would work. The finishing touch was just to pipe on his little neck bolts, which I just made little circles to kind of match the overall kind of cartoonish vibe, and he was all ready to go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you want to make your own little Frankenstein at home, the recipe is linked in the video description below. And I swear he is just as delicious as he is cute. So until next time, you guys, happy baking.